Friday night was meant to be low-key. Emily and I had plans to visit the Ivy, our go-to hangout spot with friends. I wasn't exactly thrilled about going out. Work had drained me, and all I really wanted was to stay home, crack open a cold beer, and zone out to some mindless show. But Emily had pushed for it. "We need to get out more, Jack," she said while slipping into her fitted black dress and swiping on her trademark red lipstick. The way she said it, there was no room for debate. By the time we arrived, the place was already full of life. Familiar faces from our circle were scattered around. Chloe, Emily's theatrical best friend, Jason, always the loud one cracking jokes, and a few others who floated in and out of our social orbit. Emily, true to form, stole the spotlight as soon as we walked in. She moved through the room effortlessly, laughing a little louder than necessary, leaning in a bit too close during conversations. There was something magnetic about her, and she was fully aware of it. I tried to blend in, attempted a few jokes, joined conversations, but it was like I had become a background prop. Every time I tried to speak, Emily would interject with something more entertaining or cutting, redirecting attention back to herself. She always had a way of commanding a room, but tonight it seemed more intentional. Her laugh rang out often, her touches lingered longer than usual, and she hadn't looked in my direction once. Midway through the night, I noticed her phone lying face down on the table. It buzzed occasionally, and each time it did, Emily would glance at it with a knowing smile. A smile I hadn't seen aimed at me in a long time. She never picked it up, just let it vibrate, as if enjoying some private amusement. Trying to stay casual, I asked, "Who's messaging you so much?" Without looking up, she muttered, "Work stuff. At this hour?" She finally met my eyes, her gaze cold and distant. "It's for a campaign. Deadlines don't care what time it is, Jack. Can we not get into this now?" I let it slide, though a knot had already begun to form in my stomach. Then she stood up suddenly, tapping her glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. Expecting one of her usual witty anecdotes or a playful jab, the group turned toward her. Instead, she raised her glass and declared, "To Jack, the guy who puts up with more than anyone should. Here's to patience." The room froze for a moment before Jason let out an awkward laugh, prompting the others to follow. But I didn't laugh. Couldn't. Her words were laced with something cruel, like I was the butt of a joke I didn't understand. Everyone's eyes were on me, waiting to see how I'd react. I managed a tight smile and lifted my glass, though inside, it felt like I'd been punched in the gut. When she sat back down, I leaned in and asked, "What was that supposed to mean?" She didn't even blink. "Relax, Jack. It was just a joke. You really need to lighten up. Humiliating me in front of everyone is funny to you?" Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, she grabbed it, typing quickly with a slight grin on her face. I stood up abruptly and muttered, "I need some air." Outside, the night was cool and quiet compared to the buzz inside. I walked away from the bar, my mind racing. Was I imagining things? Maybe I was just tired, reading too much into it. Still, that toast had felt off, too pointed, too deliberate. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Emily. "Are you okay? You know I love you, right?" I stared at it, my heart thudding. Her words felt off, like she was trying to smooth things over rather than truly reaching out. For the first time, I didn't respond. Something wasn't right, and I knew she wasn't telling me the full story. I went back inside. The atmosphere had shifted. It was subtle, but I could feel it, like everyone knew something I didn't. Emily was back at the table, and her phone was nowhere to be seen. She was in a quiet conversation with Chloe, who kept glancing my way, her expression somewhere between smug and sympathetic. Whatever they were discussing, I wasn't supposed to hear it. Jason caught my eye and waved me over. "Jack, man, grab another drink. You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a small laugh, brushed him off with a wave, and made my way to the bar. I ordered a glass of whiskey, hoping it would help calm my nerves. My gaze stayed locked on Emily. She was laughing again, louder than necessary, but none of it was for me. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe a moment where she dropped the act. something to help make sense of why everything felt so off. Then it happened. Chloe subtly pushed Emily's phone toward her across the table. Emily looked at it for a split second before flipping it face down again. She bit her lip, clearly holding back a smile. That was it. I couldn't sit by anymore. I walked straight over, my heart pounding. We're leaving. Right now. Emily looked up, her face unreadable. We just got here. Don't be a buzzkill. Chloe gave a half-smile as she sipped her drink. Oh, come on, Jack. Let her enjoy herself. She's been working non-stop. That was the final straw. Emily, let's go. Or I'm going alone. With a dramatic sigh, she rolled her eyes and tossed her napkin on the table. Fine. If it means that much to you. We walked away without a word to anyone, the sharp tap of her heels echoing against the pavement as we made our way to the car. The silence between us felt like a heavy fog, choking out everything else. Once inside, she folded her arms tightly and stared out the window with the sullen defiance of a scolded teenager. Emily, what's going on? I finally asked, unable to hold it in any longer. She turned toward me, eyes narrowed. What are you even talking about? Don't pretend like you don't know, I said, trying to keep calm. The weird toast, the secretive texts, the way you've been distant for weeks. What's really happening? Her lips twisted into a smirk, one that felt cruel rather than amused. Wow, Jack, you're being paranoid. Believe it or not everything revolves around you. My grip tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned pale. Then what is it about? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're definitely hiding something. She gave no reply. Instead, she turned her face back to the window, her silence shutting me out completely. I clenched my jaw and started the engine. When we arrived home, Emily headed straight to the bathroom and locked the door behind her. I remained in the living room, my eyes drawn to her purse, which she had tossed on the couch with no care. My hands trembled and my thoughts spiraled out of control. Without really thinking, I reached for it. Her phone, predictably, was gone, taken with her, but her work tablet had been left behind and was unlocked. I stood there for a moment, battling with my conscience, unsure if I should even go through with it. But the nagging voice in my head, the one whispering that something was already wrong, drowned out the hesitation. I opened her messages. Nothing suspicious. Her email? All work-related. I was ready to give up when something unfamiliar caught my eye. An app one didn't recognize. One with an ordinary name that didn't raise suspicion. Curious, I tapped it. My blood instantly ran cold. Right at the top was a message from an unsaved number. Him. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. Emily, me too. Same time next week. My hand shook as I scrolled further. Each new message a fresh wound. The exchanges were clear and unapologetic, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Every line confirmed what I hadn't wanted to admit. Then I heard the bathroom door click open. Emily came into the room, drying her hands with a towel, only to freeze the moment her eyes landed on the tablet in my grasp. Her gaze flicked to the screen, and her voice sliced through the air. What do you think you're doing? I rose slowly, my breath shaky. What is this, Emily? I held the tablet up for her to see, the messages glowing on the screen like a spotlight on betrayal. Her expression faltered, only for a second, before she straightened and crossed her arms, her mouth curving into that same icy smirk. Seriously, Jack? Snooping through my stuff now? That's just pathetic. Don't twist this around, I snapped. You've been lying. How long has it been going on? Emily? Weeks? Months? She said nothing, the silence louder than any answer. Then, in a tone as cold as stone, she finally spoke. Does it really matter? That was the moment everything crumbled. Her words settled between us like debris after an explosion. Does it matter? I repeated, barely able to process it. My chest ached, and I gripped the tablet as if it was the only thing grounding me. Of course it matters. She rolled her eyes like I was being unreasonable. Jack, you're making too much of this. It's not a huge deal. My face burned with anger. Not a big deal? You're sneaking around, messaging someone like that, and I'm just supposed to shrug it off. That cruel smile returned. Fine. You want the truth? I've been seeing someone. Honestly, I'm not sure why you're even surprised. You've been distant for ages. I stumbled back a step, as if her words had a physical force behind them. Distant? Are you kidding me? I've been putting everything into keeping this house running, keeping us together, while you've been. I lifted the tablet in disbelief. While you've been doing this. She responded with yet another shrug, unaffected. Maybe if you'd noticed me a little more, I wouldn't have needed to find it somewhere else. Something inside me broke. I slammed the tablet down on the coffee table, the loud thud ringing through the room. Don't you dare blame this on me. You made your decision, Emily. You chose to lie. That's not on me. Her expression didn't change. Oh, spare me your moral outrage, Jack. You act like you're innocent in all this. You've been married to your job, ignoring me like I don't exist. You barely talk to me, never make me feel important. What did you honestly think would happen? I was stunned. Unhappy? You could have said something. You could have told me how you felt. Instead, you tore everything apart because you felt ignored. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Talk to you? Be serious. You never really listen. You nod, act like you care, then bury your head in your work again. Face it, we've been over for a long time. You were just too blind to notice. Her words felt like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. My legs buckled beneath me, and I collapsed into the armchair, staring at her in shock. So this was it? Just like that, she had decided it was over. And instead of telling me directly, she chose to go behind my back? Was it worth it? Emily, did he mean that much to you? For the first time, her usual poise faltered. She turned her gaze away, clenching her jaw. I don't owe you an explanation, she said, her voice firm. The hell you don't? I shouted, springing to my feet again. Who is he? I want to know. Just tell me. She paused before exhaling deeply, as though she were already tired of the conversation. Fine. If you really need to know, it's Matt. From work. Matt. The name hit me like a blow. I knew him. One of the guys in marketing. Emily had mentioned him now and then, always brushing him off as harmless and a bit of a nerd. My hands balled into fists as the image of him smirking and texting my wife flashed through my mind, while I was working myself to exhaustion to keep us going. That's who you're throwing everything away for? Matt? My voice was thick with disbelief. Emily's lips curled into a bitter smile. He listens to me, Jack. He actually makes me feel like I matter. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. Her words stung like poison. I could hardly breathe. Feel appreciated? You think he truly values you? He's using you, Emily, just like you're using him. And when this all crashes down around you, don't think you can come back to me. Her expression darkened for the first time in our argument. She glared at me. You act like you're so perfect, Jack, like you've done everything right. But you haven't. You're dull, you're predictable, and honestly, you're draining. I needed more. Felt like the ground was giving way beneath my feet. This wasn't just cheating. It was the complete destruction of everything I thought we'd built together. Trying to steady myself, I took a breath. You're unbelievable. You've torn us apart, Emily. And for what? Some guy who's probably already eyeing his next target. She gave a half-hearted shrug, her detached demeanor returning. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. But at least with him, I feel like I'm alive. Alive. That word echoed in my head, taunting me. Get out, I said, my voice low and controlled. Her eyebrows arched. What did you say? I said get out, Emily. Go run to your precious Matt. Go feel alive with him. Just leave my house. She looked like she might protest, but instead, she reached for her purse and keys, her movements slow and deliberate. Fine, I'll leave, but don't fool yourself into thinking this is entirely my fault. Jack, you played your part. I didn't reply, couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, as she walked to the door and slammed it shut behind her. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. I sank back into the chair, my eyes falling on the tablet still lying on the table. The messages glared back at me, raw and unrelenting, like a wound that refused to close. For the first time in years, I felt truly alone. The next morning, the house was unnervingly quiet. The faint scent of Emily's perfume still lingered in the air, a cruel reminder that she used to live in this space, laugh in these rooms, and share this life with me. But now she was gone. Probably at Matt's place, I assumed. Sleep had barely touched me. All night, my mind had been racing, rehashing every second of our fight. Her coldness, that bitter smile, the way she walked out like it was nothing more than a routine argument, rather than the complete unraveling of our marriage. It felt as though she'd been plotting her escape for months, and I'd only now caught up to the truth. By 7 in the morning, I couldn't lie in bed any longer. I threw on an old hoodie and trudged to the kitchen. The coffee pot gurgled and hissed as it brewed, and I stared at it without really seeing, my mind stuck on a loop of questions. Had I been so blind? Did I miss all the signs? Or had she simply become that skilled at pretending? Then my phone buzzed. Reflexively, I picked it up, not even sure what I hoped for. An apology? A flicker of regret? But no, it was a message from Jason. "Jack, are you all right? Last night was heavy." I didn't respond. What could I possibly say? Instead, I scrolled through my contacts and paused when I saw Chloe's name. That smug little smile she'd given me at the bar replayed in my mind. She knew something. She had to. Without letting myself think too much, I hit call. "Jack?" Chloe's voice came through, groggy and unsure. "It's kind of early. What's going on?" "You tell me," I said flatly. "You and Emily looked pretty tight last night. Want to explain what's really going on?" There was a brief silence followed by a heavy sigh. "Jack, I don't want to be in the middle of this. It's between you and her." "Don't give me that," I snapped. "You've been her best friend forever. You knew about Matt, didn't you?" Another pause, this one longer. "Look, Emily told me things in confidence. I didn't think it was my place to say anything. So you just sat there, grinning like you were in on the joke while she made a fool of me," I said, my voice rising despite trying to stay calm. Chloe groaned on the other end. "Jack, don't do this. I know you're hurting, but you only know your version of things. Emily's been unhappy for a long time. You had to see it coming." Her words landed like a punch to the gut. "See it coming? What are you even talking about?" "She felt invisible, Jack. Like she didn't matter anymore. You were so caught up in your own issues that you didn't even notice hers were falling apart," Chloe snapped, her voice rising with frustration. "That doesn't excuse anything," I shot back, my temper flaring. "If she was miserable, she should have come to me instead of running off with some sleazy guy from her job." Chloe's voice turned sharper, more pointed. "Maybe she should have, but let's not act like you had no part in this. Relationships take effort from both sides, Jack." That was it, I couldn't listen anymore. "You know what? Just forget it. Keep covering for her. You're no better than she is," I snapped before hanging up. My heart raced as silence fell over the room, now feeling uncomfortably small, almost as if the walls were closing in. Chloe's words kept bouncing around in my head, blending with everything Emily had said the night before. Was I really the one at fault? Had I overlooked something so obvious? But no, I hadn't betrayed anyone. I never lied, I never snuck around, and I certainly never humiliated her in front of people we cared about. I wasn't perfect, but this wasn't something I deserved. Anger simmered in my chest again. I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found Emily's name. My thumb lingered over the call button. A part of me wanted to confront her, unleash all my rage, and demand answers. Instead, I typed a message, "You need to come get your stuff. Let me know when. I don't want to see you, so make sure I'm not here." Her reply came almost instantly. "I'll figure it out. Don't worry, I don't want to see you either." That one stung far more than I thought it would. Even now, she couldn't show the slightest hint of remorse or compassion. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever, my coffee slowly cooling on the table beside me. For the first time since everything unraveled, the anger gave way to something heavier: grief. It wasn't just about losing Emily. It was about losing the life we built together, the person I thought she was, and the version of me that still believed in us even when things started to crack. As the early sunlight filtered in through the curtains, it hit me. This wasn't only the end of a marriage. It was the end of the identity I'd held onto for the past 6 years. By midday, the house was silent, but my thoughts weren't. I couldn't sit still. I scrubbed dishes that were already spotless, folded clothes I didn't even need to, anything to keep moving. But nothing helped. Every inch of our home reminded me of Emily, every corner, every photo, every sound, each memory cutting deeper. The tablet on the coffee table seemed to glare at me like a silent witness. Its screen had gone black, but the words I read last night kept flashing in my mind. Last night was amazing. Her reply, same time next week? My hands trembled. She had no intention of stopping. To her, everything we shared was just background noise, an inconvenience to be brushed aside. That's when I knew I needed more answers. Picking up the tablet again, I began digging through apps, messages, emails. I already knew it wouldn't change what had happened, but I needed to understand just how far it went. The first thing that stood out was her calendar. Seemingly harmless notes like meeting, late dinner, or office event were sprinkled throughout, but something felt off. They didn't align with what I remembered from her actual schedule. These weren't work events, they were smokescreens. My stomach knotted as the realization hit she had been carefully orchestrating this entire deception. Then I opened the emails. Most were standard work messages, but a few caught my eye. There he was, Matt. Looking forward to tonight. Should we take separate cars again? And then Emily's reply, yeah. Can't have Jack getting suspicious. LOL. I nearly hurled the tablet across the room. This wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. She wasn't hiding it out of guilt, she was laughing about it. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it didn't bother her one bit. And that's what truly cut the deepest. It wasn't just the affair, it was how easily I could be disregarded. How little I meant to her in the end. She had no hesitation twisting the truth into a joke. As I sat there, stunned and shaking, my phone vibrated with a message from Jason. Hey, man. You okay? We're here if you need anything. Jason had always been a loyal friend, and even though he didn't know the full scope of this disaster, he cared. I replied simply, not great, but thanks. I'll get through it. But that wasn't the truth. I wouldn't be fine, not anytime soon. The rest of the day drifted by in a haze. I tried to eat but couldn't stomach a bite. My thoughts kept circling back to Emily, the deceit, the cold way she walked out as if none of it had ever mattered. How could someone who once claimed to love me become this stranger? Late in the afternoon, I heard the unmistakable sound of her car in the driveway. A jolt of panic ran through me. She wasn't supposed to come today. I hadn't prepared myself for this. The front door creaked open, and there she was, standing in the entryway like nothing had happened. I'm here to grab my things, she said flatly. I stood my ground, arms crossed. You couldn't have at least called first? She glanced at me, a flicker of annoyance flashing across her face. Didn't realize I needed your permission, Jack. No, you didn't, I said coldly. But a little notice would have been decent. You made it crystal clear you didn't want to see me. Or did you forget that part? Emily shrugged, brushing past me toward the bedroom. I'll be quick. I trailed behind her, keeping just enough distance to stay unnoticed, but unable to tear my eyes away. She moved robotically, pulling clothes from the closet with an eerie precision. Her face betrayed nothing. As she packed, I found my restraint faltering. So this is how it ends? No explanation, no apology? You're just going to pack up like this is nothing more than an ordinary breakup. She paused mid-motion, holding a dress, and turned to face me. Her expression stayed firm. What do you want me to say, Jack? That I feel bad? That I wish I could take it all back? Because I don't. I did what was necessary. The same thing you should have done. I almost laughed, but it came out bitter and hollow. Necessary? You call lying, humiliating me, and throwing away our life together necessary? For what? Some meaningless fling. Her eyes sharpened. You're still not getting it. This was never about Matt. It was about me realizing I deserve happiness. And with you, that was never going to happen. Her words landed hard, like a punch to the gut. I struggled to breathe. You think this sneaking around, deceiving me, tearing apart everything we built, this is happiness? She turned away and tossed the dress into her suitcase without another word. I'm not here to argue, Jack. Just let me pack and go. I stood there, my hands clenched, my body trembling from the surge of disbelief and fury. You're not brave, Emily. You didn't do what had to be done. You picked the easy way out. Instead of fixing what was broken, you ran. And what stings the most? You don't even seem to care. For a flicker of a second, something changed in her face, a flicker of guilt, maybe, but she quickly masked it. Think what you want. I'm through trying to justify myself. And that was it. She zipped her suitcase, grabbed the handle, and walked out the door. No dramatic exit. No final words. I didn't go after her. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there, unmoving, listening to the hum of her car fading down the road. It was done. Really done. But in that frozen moment, clarity struck me. It wasn't just Emily I had lost. It was the illusion I had held onto for so long, the person I thought she was. And maybe, just maybe, that was the deepest cut of all. The silence that followed her departure was far from comforting. It felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. The house seemed to consume me whole. Every corner echoed with traces of her. Her favorite mug remained untouched on the kitchen counter. That soft throw blanket she always curled up with was still resting on the couch. Her perfume lingered faintly in the air, clinging to the curtains. I sank into the living room chair, eyes locked on the now empty space where her suitcase had been. My thoughts spiraled into chaos. Anger and sorrow collided inside me, forming something darker and more consuming. How could I have missed it all? The signs she claimed were always there, how had they escaped me? Her words wouldn't stop replaying in my mind. You were never going to make me happy. I deserve to be happy. You pushed me to this. As if she had been the victim. As if her betrayal was somehow justified by my shortcomings. I needed to escape, anything to distract me from the storm in my head. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and stepped outside. The cold evening air stung my skin, a shock to the system. I drove aimlessly, not bothering with direction or destination. The streets blurred, city lights bleeding across the windshield in streaks of color. Eventually, I found myself parked in front of a bar. Not the Ivy, thank goodness. This place was small, worn down, somewhere I'd never been. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of cigarettes and old beer. It wasn't welcoming, but I didn't care. I ordered a whiskey and slid into a booth in the back, lowering my gaze. As the alcohol warmed its way down, I pulled out my phone. I knew I shouldn't, but I opened up Emily's profile. It was quiet. No vague quotes. No polished photos pretending everything was perfect. Still, that didn't mean she wasn't already rewriting the story in her favor. Then it hit me, Matt. Without pause, I searched for his account. There he was, grinning with that smug look like someone who spent more time styling his hair than working. His feed was predictable, gym selfies, corporate events, and cheesy motivational captions. But then I saw it, a post from a week ago taken at a restaurant I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Great night with even better company," followed by a wine glass emoji. There it was, Emily's name tagged in the comments, paired with a heart emoji. My fingers tightened around the glass until I feared it might shatter. This wasn't some random mistake. It was premeditated. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. "Long night?" a voice asked, jolting me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see the bartender, middle-aged, his face lined with time, standing near my booth. He gestured at my drink. "Looks like you could use another round." I gave a silent nod and he returned with a fresh pour. "You want to talk about it?" he offered, leaning casually on the booth's edge. Normally, I would have brushed off a stranger. But tonight, I couldn't keep it in anymore. "My wife, she cheated on me," I admitted, the words landing like stones. "With some guy from her office." He let out a low whistle and shook his head slowly. "That's rough," he murmured. "Did you confront her about it?" "I did," I replied, the bitterness in my tone impossible to miss. She didn't even try to deny it. Just brushed it off, like I was the one to blame, like I somehow pushed her into doing it. The bartender's brow furrowed and his features tightened with a quiet anger. People like that never take ownership of what they do. It's always easier for them to point fingers at someone else. I gave a slight nod, thankful for his support even if it didn't ease the hollow feeling inside. "I don't know what to do now," I admitted. "She's out of my life, but it still doesn't feel like any of this is over." He tapped the wooden edge of the table thoughtfully before speaking. "It won't feel finished until you say it is. People like her? They'll keep pulling you under if you let them. Don't hand her that kind of power." As I emptied my glass, his words echoed in my head, offering a spark of clarity I hadn't felt all night. Emily had taken so much, my trust, my peace of mind, my sense of balance, but she wasn't going to take away what lay ahead. I walked out of the bar that evening with a sense of purpose I hadn't known I needed. The road ahead wasn't going to be smooth. There were still divorce proceedings to begin, our lives to untangle, and difficult conversations waiting with friends and family. But there was one thing I knew for sure: Emily had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I wasn't going to be a victim in the narrative she created. When the next morning came, I woke with a rare sense of mental clarity, the kind that only surfaces after hitting the lowest point. Emily's last words still stung, but something had shifted inside me. She wasn't around anymore to warp the story, to use my own doubts and guilt against me. This was my narrative now, and I had decisions to face. The very first call I made was to a lawyer. "I want to start the divorce process," I said. The words left a bitter taste in my mouth, but they needed to be said. Claire, the lawyer, was direct and focused, a woman who clearly didn't waste time. She listened as I explained everything: Emily's betrayal, the cold way she dismissed our relationship, and how completely unapologetic she had been. Claire didn't so much as blink. She'd clearly seen and heard worse, but her steady confidence was just what I needed. "You'll want to gather all your shared financial documents," she instructed. "Bank records, property ownership, joint accounts. And if you have proof of the affair, that may support the negotiation process. I did. The messages from Matt, the saved conversations on her tablet, they were undeniable. For a moment I paused. Was it cruel to use them? But then I remembered her laughing behind my back, mocking everything we had, as if I was just an obstacle in her pursuit of something more exciting. I wasn't playing nice anymore. With Claire's help, I spent hours sifting through files, emails, and shared accounts, tracing every point of connection between us. It felt almost surgical, like I was dissecting the remains of a life we had once shared. Still, there was a certain power in it. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control back. Then came the second strike. I messaged Jason. Need to talk. Can we meet? His reply came fast. Sure. Come by in an hour. 1 hour later, I was sitting on his couch, spilling everything. He listened in silence, the usual joking glint in his eye replaced by concern. When I finally finished, he exhaled deeply. Man, I had no clue it was that bad. Emily actually did that to you. Yeah, I said quietly, staring at the floor. And the worst part is, she walked away like none of it mattered. Jason leaned back, running his hand through his hair. That's cold, Jack. Really cold. But you know what? You're keeping it together better than I would. I probably would have lost it. I gave a faint smile. Trust me, I've had my moments. After a pause, Jason's tone shifted. You've noticed Chloe acting strange too, right? I don't know if she was directly involved with Emily's mess, but something about her behavior is off. My stomach twisted. Chloe, Emily's closest friend, her confidant, the one who had given me that smug look at the bar. She definitely knew something. I was sure of it. You think she was in on it? I asked. Jason gave a slow nod. If she wasn't, I'd be shocked. Chloe and Emily are like two sides of the same coin. If Emily was sneaking around, Chloe was probably the one helping her cover it up. That settled it. Chloe was next. Later that day, I called her. She picked up on the second ring, her voice too chipper, like she'd been expecting this. Well, if it isn't Jack. How's life in the soap opera these days? No games, Chloe, I said firmly. We need to talk. Face to face. She hesitated for a moment, her fake cheerfulness faltering. Ah, okay, what's going on? You know exactly what this is about. There was a long pause. Then she sighed. Fine. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th. By the time I arrived, she was already seated with an iced latte in hand, casually scrolling through her phone like it was any other day. She looked up as I approached, her expression unreadable. So, she said, placing her drink down. What's on your mind? You knew, I said, sitting across from her. You knew about Emily and Matt, didn't you? Chloe didn't blink. Instead, she leaned back and folded her arms. And if I did? What does it matter now? My hands curled into fists under the table. It matters because you stood by her. You covered for her lies. You watched her belittle me and you didn't utter a single word. My voice cracked as I looked at Chloe, who simply exhaled and rolled her eyes in annoyance. Jack, you're completely overreacting, she replied, brushing off my frustration. Emily was in a bad place. She needed a way out. I didn't agree with her choices, but it wasn't up to me to step in. Not up to you? I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. You sat there, laughing right alongside her while she deceived me. How can you possibly say that wasn't your place? Chloe leaned in closer, her voice dropping and growing colder. I understand you're hurting, Jack. But maybe you should take a step back and ask yourself why Emily felt she couldn't be honest with you. Relationships don't just fall apart for no reason. That was it for me. I stood abruptly, staring her down. You can defend her all you like, Chloe. But when she finds her next so-called escape and moves on like she always does, don't come back with your apologies and justifications. You made your choice. Without waiting for any kind of reply, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the cafe. The sound of my footsteps echoed in my ears as I stepped into the chilly evening air. In that moment, I understood that Emily wasn't the only person I'd lost Chloe too. Or maybe I never truly had her in the first place. But honestly, it didn't matter anymore. Things were finally becoming clear, and I was done letting others twist the truth of what had happened. The days following that confrontation were a storm of emotions. Anger still burned within me, betrayal simmering just beneath the surface. But now, there was something new and unwavering resolve. This wasn't just about recovering from Emily's betrayal anymore. It had become about taking my life back, one step at a time. I dove headfirst into preparing for the divorce. Claire moved fast, taking care of the legal work and guiding me through every decision. The entire process felt like undoing a masterpiece I'd spent years creating. Bank accounts being shut down, assets divided, memories itemized and stored away. It was like dismantling a version of my life I'd always believed in. But what struck me the hardest was the silence. Emily never called, never texted. It was like I had been wiped clean from her memory overnight. And maybe that was the most painful part. How effortlessly she walked away, leaving nothing behind but confusion and destruction. Then one evening, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. "Hello," I answered, my voice guarded. "Jack," came the reply. It was Emily. I tightened my grip on the phone, my chest seizing up. "What do you want?" Her voice was cool and emotionless. "Claire sent over the divorce documents. I'm going to sign them. No need to stretch this out any longer." There was no warmth in her tone, just formality. A surge of fresh anger rushed through me. "That's it? No explanation? No apology? Just a signature and you're done?" She sighed, her patience clearly thinning. "What exactly do you want me to say, Jack? That I'm sorry? That I regret what happened? I don't. This was bound to happen eventually." My voice trembled with fury. "Bound to happen? You lied to me. You betrayed our marriage. And now you're acting like it was all part of some natural course. Like I somehow had it coming." A long silence followed before she finally spoke again. "I didn't call to argue. I'm just trying to make this easier. You wanted closure? Fine. You've got it. I'll sign the papers. That's the end." I let out a bitter laugh. "You think closure comes from a signature? That it can erase everything you did?" Her voice hardened sharply. "You're the one who wanted this finalized. Well, now it is. Stop dragging this out, Jack. It's pathetic." And with that, the call ended. I stood motionless, the abrupt silence hurting more than her words. This wasn't just indifference, it was calculated cruelty. She wanted me to feel worthless. And for a fleeting moment, she succeeded. But only for that moment. As I paced through the house, her words looping in my head, a realization slowly formed. Something didn't sit right. If Emily was so desperate to be free of me, why bother calling? Why not just quietly sign and move on? Then it clicked. She wasn't in control anymore, and that terrified her. Finalizing the divorce wasn't just about ending the marriage. It meant she no longer held power over me. That truth gave me the strength I needed. The following day, I met with Claire and reviewed every part of the settlement. "She doesn't get to leave destruction in her wake and just walk away clean," I said firmly. "Make sure this is fair." Claire's eyes were serious as she nodded. "We'll do everything right, Jack. But be ready. If she's as cold as you say, she's not going to back down without a fight." And she didn't. Emily disputed nearly every term of the agreement, from the home to the smallest shared items. Her emails to Claire were venomous, painting me as bitter and vengeful. But I refused to back down. Not this time. About a week later, I got another phone call. This time, from Chloe. "I figured you should hear it from me," she said, her voice coated in false sympathy. "Emily's been telling everyone that you're out to destroy her life. She claims you're deliberately dragging out the divorce to punish her." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Of course she is. That's what she always does. Plays the victim. Just make it look like everyone else is to blame." Chloe hesitated before responding. "Jack, I understand you're upset. You understand nothing." I cut her off sharply. "You're just as responsible for this mess as she is. So spare me the concern." I ended the call before she could reply. That night, something within me changed. I was done letting Emily and her circle paint me as the antagonist. They weren't going to distort the truth of my story. I sat down at my laptop and began organizing every piece of proof I had, text conversations, emails, photographs, into a single, well-structured folder. It wasn't about revenge or causing harm. It was about protecting myself, ensuring that if Emily tried to twist things further, I had the truth documented. Once I finished, I leaned back and exhaled deeply. The pain and frustration were still present, but for the first time in a while, I felt like I had regained some control. Emily might attempt to alter the narrative, but I wasn't going to let her succeed. This wasn't the ending she had in mind, but it was the one she had brought upon herself. Roughly 2 weeks later, the divorce negotiations hit a breaking point. Emily, consistent in her behavior, wasn't just clinging to the material aspects of our separation. She was determined to keep her version of the story intact. Her attorney sent over a message accusing me of being bitter and unreasonable, suggesting I was intentionally prolonging the proceedings to torment her. I forwarded the email to Claire with a brief message: use everything we've got. Without delay, Claire acted. The following day, she submitted our collection of evidence, screenshots of Emily's messages with Matt, discrepancies in her calendar entries that didn't align with her work schedule, and records revealing that she had dipped into our shared savings, likely funding their secret escapades. By the end of the week, the tone of Emily's legal team shifted dramatically. Her lawyer sent over a revised offer, far less confrontational than before. As Claire read it aloud, a satisfied grin crept across her face. Seems like someone's perspective has shifted. But for me, this wasn't just about dividing property or money anymore. It had become a matter of setting the record straight. That Friday, Jason and a few close friends invited me over for dinner. They claimed it was just to help me unwind, but I could tell they were also curious about everything going on. I didn't mind. I needed a break, even if facing people felt a bit overwhelming. When I arrived, Jason welcomed me with his usual bear hug. Glad to see you, man. You look more like yourself again. Thanks, I said, offering a faint smile. Just taking it day by day. As the evening unfolded and the wine kept pouring, the topic inevitably drifted to Emily. Jason was the first to mention her, speaking in a low, conspiratorial voice. Chloe's been talking, he said, eyeing me. Apparently Emily's been telling everyone you're on some kind of vendetta. I leaned back in my chair, unbothered. Let her talk. She's got no ground to stand on anymore. Jason gave me a curious look. You're awfully calm about it. I've got the receipts, I replied, which drew a few amused reactions from the group. Then Lisa, another friend, added something that shifted the energy in the room. I bumped into Matt not long ago, she said casually, though her expression was telling. The room quieted. He didn't seem thrilled, she continued, swirling her glass. Said things with Emily weren't exactly going smoothly. I sat up, more alert. What do you mean by that? She shrugged. He didn't go into detail. Just said it was complicated. But he sure didn't look like someone happy in love. A strange sense of satisfaction bubbled up in me. It was almost poetic in a way. Emily had given up everything for Matt, and now even that was falling apart. Then Jason reached for his phone. Speaking of receipts, he muttered, scrolling through his messages. Take a look at this, he said, handing me the screen. My jaw tightened as I read the text. It was from Chloe, sent earlier that day. Emily's losing it. She feels cornered by Jack and thinks he's going to ruin her name. Jason gave me a smirk. Looks like she's starting to panic. I handed the phone back, a mix of triumph and sorrow settling in. Emily's world was unraveling. A part of me wanted to savor that. But another part, the one that still remembered the laughter, the better years, felt empty. A few days after that, Emily called. I almost ignored it, but curiosity made me pick up. What do you want? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Her tone was softer than usual. Jack, can we meet? I'd like to talk. In person. Why now? I asked, clearly skeptical. I think I owe you an apology, she said after a pause. Though I didn't fully trust her, I agreed. We met in a park we used to frequent when times were good. She appeared different, less confident, quieter, almost worn down. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she began, eyes cast downward. About all of it. About us. I realize now that I was wrong about so many things. I crossed my arms, staying guarded. Took you long enough, I said. She winced at my words but didn't stop. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I just needed to apologize for the lies, the way I treated you, for everything. For a brief second, I was silent. This was the apology I had long hoped for, yet now that it was finally spoken, it felt strangely hollow. I appreciate you saying that, I responded at last, but it doesn't change anything. You made your decisions, Emily, and now we're both left to deal with the outcome. She gave a small nod, eyes brimming with tears. I know, I just... Don't, I interrupted firmly. You don't get to reshape the past now. Her face faltered, the mask slipping to reveal real regret, the kind I hadn't seen before. But at this point, it didn't change the course we were on. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the park, a distant echo of the woman I once loved. On the drive home, a strange calm took hold of me. Emily had destroyed what we had, yet I was beginning to build something new from the ruins, something that felt more stable, more personal. The divorce was finalized without fanfare. There were no heated arguments, no courtroom showdowns. Just a few signed documents, some emails exchanged between attorneys, and the quiet confirmation that Emily and I were no longer husband and wife. When Claire messaged me to confirm it was all completed, I stared at the screen for several minutes. It was surreal. I had invested so much into trying to salvage our relationship, and now it was simply over. But instead of heartbreak, I felt a weight lift off me. The emotional burden I'd carried for what felt like years was finally gone. As a first step forward, I decided to clear the house. I packed away everything that reminded me of Emily. Clothes she had left behind, keepsakes, even the framed photos I had avoided looking at. By nightfall, the house felt emptier, but for the first time it also felt like mine. Most of her belongings were donated. However, one box remained in the garage, sealed and labeled with her name. If she ever wanted it, she could come get it. If not, it would remain there until I decided its fate, or forgot about it altogether. Then I turned inward. I went back to the gym for the first time in years. Initially, it was just an outlet for my frustration, but gradually, it became something more. As my body grew stronger, so did my mindset. Each rep, each mile on the treadmill was a quiet victory. One that pulled me further from the man I had been during our marriage. I also started reconnecting with friends I had neglected. Jason, in particular, never left my side. He kept pulling me into social events, refusing to let me isolate myself. "Told you life doesn't end after Emily," he said one evening over beers. For the first time in forever, I replied with a genuine smile. "You were right." Then came the unexpected message. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Unknown Jack, it's Matt. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, stunned. Of all the people I could have heard from, Matt was the last I expected. Despite my hesitation, curiosity got the better of me. "Me? What could you possibly want to say to me?" "Matt, please. I just need 5 minutes." I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop close by. I wasn't sure what I hoped or feared he might say. When I got there, Matt was already seated. He looked drained, no longer carrying the arrogance I remembered. His posture sagged, his skin pale. He looked like someone who had taken a few hard hits. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat across from him. "Make it fast," I said, folding my arms. He nodded, running a hand across the back of his neck. I wanted to apologize for everything. I didn't know Emily was married at first, and when I did, I should have stepped back. But I didn't. I let the silence stretch. He fidgeted under the weight of it. "She lied to me too," he continued, voice sharp with bitterness. "Said you were some terrible husband, that she was stuck in a miserable life. And I believed her, because I wanted to." My jaw clenched, but I said nothing. "And now," he added with a humorless laugh, "now I see who she really is. She's already with someone new. Left me the same way she left you." It was oddly satisfying to hear, but I kept my expression flat. "What did you think would happen, Matt? That she'd betray her vows for you and never do the same to you?" He flinched. That one hit hard. "I probably deserved that," he muttered. "Yeah," I said, rising to my feet. "You did. But your apology? It's not mine to accept. That's something you have to carry, not me." I walked out, leaving him sitting there alone, a shadow of the man who had played a part in destroying my marriage. Later that night, I sat on the porch and watched the sun slowly dip beyond the horizon. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I was able to breathe freely. The anger and resentment were still inside me, but they no longer held me hostage. Emily was gone. The life we had created together was also gone. But I remained. And finally, that felt like it was enough. I didn't have all the answers yet. I had no clear idea what path lay ahead. But one thing had become absolutely certain. I was no longer the man who once stood still as Emily unraveled everything I held dear. I had grown tougher, gained insight, and felt more determined than ever to start over. This might not have been the conclusion I had envisioned, but perhaps it was exactly the resolution I needed. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final golden light across the sky, another truth dawned on me. The most meaningful chapters of my life were still waiting to be written.